A few Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna filed a resolution calling for the expulsion of Democratic Congressman Adam Schiff from Congress over so-called revelations from special counsel John Durham's report. Congressman Luna alleges that Adam Schiff lied to the American people. He used his position on House Intelligence to push a lie that cost American taxpayers millions of dollars and abused the trust placed in him as chairman. The Durham report makes clear that the Russian collusion was a lie from day one, and Schiff knowingly perpetuated that lie for political gain. Joining us now is Congressman Adam Schiff of California, member of the Judiciary Committee. Congressman Schiff, thanks so much for being here. I'll just get right to it. I mean, what is your response to this move to try and expel you from the House of Representatives?
Well, as you said, the Durham investigation, and again, this was an investigation Donald Trump demanded, an investigation of the investigators. Bill Barr was only happy enough to comply by the appointment of Durham. Durham spends 4 years trying to prove this deep state conspiracy theory that Trump kept, telling his base was going to be proven, and people like Brennan and Pelosi and Schiff and others were going to be prosecuted. The whole thing, of course, was a big bust. 4 years, hundreds of interviews, and nothing to show but two failed cases in which not the defendants who were acquitted, but Durham, the prosecutor, I think, was criticized by the judge. And so their response to this big disappointment for Trump and for the MAGA crowd, let's go after Adam Schiff. Let's go after the person they most view as standing up for the rule of law, as standing up against Trump and MAGA world, leading the first impeachment, participating in the January 6th committee. That's what this is about. And Alex, I'm convinced when this dark chapter of our history is written, it will reflect that those Republican members who lack the courage to stand up to the most unethical president in U.S. history, Donald Trump, consoled themselves by attacking those who did. And that's what this is really about.
Are you surprised that Speaker McCarthy is invoking your name? I mean, he is not technically part of the MAGA wing of the party, although he certainly does help them find a home in the Republican conference. But he is the Speaker of the House and is supposed to be above some of this petty political mudslinging. Did his comments surprise you?
You know, nothing he does really surprises me. This is the same guy that gave surveillance video to Tucker Carlson. He will do whatever Trump wants him to do, and I'm sure Trump glories in McCarthy and House Republicans going after me. This is all about satisfying his boss in Mar-a-Lago and satisfying the Fox-watching crowd that loves Donald Trump. So it doesn't surprise me. McCarthy's also made it clear he wants to do everything he can to stop me from being elected to the Senate, where he knows I would be even more effective in pushing back against these efforts to tear down the rule of law. So this is, I think, part of what is at work here.
Do you think that there's, I'm not going to ask if you think it's a coincidence because it's clearly not, but this is the day that there was a move to expel George Santos, the serial fabulist, from Congress. That failed. But do you think that this is a naked play to basically seek an eye for an eye, if you will? If George Santos is going to get kicked out, then so is Adam Schiff?
I think that a lot of what's going on is what we've seen many times in the past, which is when Democrats do something for the right reason, they use the precedent to do something for the wrong reason and attempt to draw some kind of a false equivalence about it. But, you know, the confluence of efforts to expel this serial fabricator, George Santos, this person who's just been indicted, who's admitted guilt to a foreign crime, to distract attention from that, and in the wake of the added disappointment of the Durham report, let's go after Adam Schiff. Let's, please the MAGA crowd and send a message to anyone else that stands up to Donald Trump and the extreme MAGA world. We will go after you the way we're going after Adam Schiff.
I think, Congressman Schiff, I think a lot of people are very deeply appreciative of what you've done in Congress and that the fact that you are not being cowed by these transparent attempts to oust you for reasons that have nothing to do with anything other than jealousy that you're effective at your job. Congressman Adam Schiff, thanks for your time tonight. Good luck in this fight.